and welcome. Thanks for joining me and Markus. Markus just came straight from another meeting, so that's why we're just like 1 minute delayed here. But it's all good. I'm super excited to talk to you today, Markus, because you sent quite an extensive list of 10 bullets that we can use to go through the fundamentals of let's call it account-based go-to-market, or ABX. But before we rush into it, Markus, maybe let's just bring people up to kind of who are you and what's your background and why do you know something about, let's call ABX.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So first of all, Stefan, thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity to discuss with you about this. So so my name is Markus Ståhlberg. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called N.Rich. So we are an account-based marketing platform founded in 2016. So been working with through the transition of the B2B market from B2B marketing from let's say marketing automation driven model to the account-based marketing, and then eventually nowadays to the, let's say, account-based go-to-market or like a more holistic sales and marketing approach.
Oh, sorry, I was listening. I think I had your talk coming through, Markus, on the other browser. I would love to hear kind of how you got the idea to start out N.Rich and the things you were doing there.
Yeah, sure. So it's an we saw that there is a clear challenge in the B2B market, back in 2016, that companies were really, focusing on offline, on the events and things like that, putting most of their money on not really on digital, and emerging. We saw that this account-based marketing is something which is kind of potentially disrupting the whole B2B marketing environment, which it eventually did. So we saw this problem. We saw that these companies are really struggling to they have a lot of money typically to invest on marketing, but the results were not really that measurable, and the lead generation model, everything. It just seems like that there's a lot of things that are broken, and then eventually we understood that this, sales and marketing are not really collaborating together. There is like a big gap, huge gap between both, and what we've seen then over the past 5 years or so, this has been there has been a lot of development in this area.
Yeah, I can't imagine a time where people didn't do digital, but it probably existed still. Okay, so you sent me this quite good list, Markus, and I think we should actually just stick quite strict to it. So I will read out the first sentence you sent me, which is create a plan for 4x time versus your sales cycle. Target rollout to the entire overall go-to-market. What is it? Not earlier than in 12 months.
Correct.
So that sounds like you have to start way before the sales need to land.
Yeah, correct. So let's first elaborate on the subject. So this is really about if you're doing ABM already, and even if you are not doing ABM, this is kind of a transition from ABM, account-based marketing, to an account-based go-to-market model, which we refer to here as ABX. So it means that you need to end up in a situation where sales and marketing are actually collaborating. They're part of the same process. So it's not just about marketing. It's not just about the sales, but it's one process where both parties have a role. And here, probably it's kind of obvious why it takes so much time. But many times, especially when marketing leads these projects, there is no understanding of the fact that changes take time, and especially in the sales team side, it's a huge barrier in terms of like making them try to do things in a new way, because they're used to doing things in a way that they are used to doing things, and it takes just so much time. So this is just an advice that I would give for anybody who is planning to do this, especially from marketing perspective, to understand that the change management is probably the biggest challenge you will face, and especially on this changing of the processes of the sales team.
That's super interesting. Let's try to be a little bit low practical. So if it says 4x, and I guess the sales cycle in B2B would or like the time spent at the CRM system would maybe be 3 months or something like that. Maybe
I'd say probably like 6 months would be more of an average that we see in the market. Obviously, it depends on the niche. If you have like a certain like a more transactional product, it will be slower. Shorter. But I'd say like this 2 years is a good time frame for an average B2B company to
wow, that's a long time. Why do you think this so much time is necessary to kind of adjust the course of how things are being done today?
It of course depends on the company. Like some can do it much faster, but if you take established companies, bigger companies, the processes are really established. People do things like they are used to doing things, and this requires a major change, and you can't expect quick wins. It's just not going to happen. Don't expect that during the first quarter or even the first 6 months you will actually, it will be probably just very painful during that time. You will get a lot of negative feedback and a lot of opposing views, like why are we changing, why aren't we doing what we are doing right now? It's working just fine, and so it requires really this strong decision internally, like this is what we want to do, and that's why we always recommend to just looking at it from a longer perspective.
I was thinking in our world in Dream Data, we would be 2 years would probably be too long to implement something, but I totally get when you're like an enterprise company that there's hundreds of processes rolling. It takes the starting point for changing takes a lot longer time than for us smaller companies. I bet in N.Rich you can turn around things quite fast as well.
Correct. So I'd say when you go above, let's say 100 employees, then it will start getting more and more difficult. And then when you're already over 500 employees, this starts to apply. So I'm not saying that if you are a startup, like early stage startup, that it will take 2 years. World will be a very different place for a startup in 2 years, but this is more applying to a bit larger and established companies.
So you're referring to the internal time that it takes to change, and not necessarily the time that it takes for marketing to have an impact. Like you run some ad campaign and then a lead comes in and then you sell.
Yes. So that's a good point. So this is definitely not about that. So this is not about marketing at all. It is about marketing as well, but this is about the revenue. So the question here is really about to build a process or processes that involve marketing and sales, and it's not this traditional funnel, but it's actually like a parallel process where marketing is going alongside the sales, and marketing is basically, or let's say the entire revenue teams know exactly what they should do at which stage of that life cycle, or let's say the buyer journey of the customer, what content should be used, and so forth. So obviously you can go live with something like a campaign or something like that, like tactical stuff really quickly, but that doesn't mean that you are doing ABX. That doesn't mean that you are transitioning from let's say marketing automation driven model to an ABX, or account-based marketing to ABX. So that's just like running a campaign. So that's tactical. And what I want to talk about here is really the strategic side of things.
That makes sense, Markus. Maybe just for people listening, just do treat it as you're listening to this conversation physically as well. So that means write your questions so me and Markus can catch up on them if there's anything we say that you would like to know more of. Before we go to the next bullet, Markus, is there a particularly company type where ABX works well for, or a particular market that you are addressing that works particularly well, or certain deal size that you should have in mind when you're thinking about this tactic?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So I would say usually the larger the better. But as maybe threshold, you can consider like an ACV, annual contract value, of 50,000 or more. So if you are at 10,000, for instance, it probably isn't like something that you should be considering yet at this point. So it will be more of an enterprise mid-market type thing where you are actually targeting bigger deal sizes and bigger companies. And I'd say I also want to address here the point that like there are many companies who are already doing this very well, and especially in the US, you see a lot of venture funded scale-ups who are doing this really in a great way. They have great sales development teams, and marketing knows exactly what to do, how to support it, and so forth. But there are a lot of companies, especially in the, let's say, more traditional industries. This is like what I'm trying to address here, that this actually like it's a B2B thing, not just tech thing, not just software thing, not just hardware thing. It's like for like entire B2B go-to-market. So whether you are like selling ships or whether you are selling like servers or like software, like it is all applicable, definitely. So obviously it's slower processes with such companies, but that's also something I want to address here.
Yeah, I think that connects pretty well to your next point, meaning that ABX is not just a marketing initiative, but it involves all the revenue teams. What does that mean for you, Markus?
Yeah, so that's an in terms of ABX, this is kind of the foundation that it's not account-based marketing. It is about involving first of all the sales. So marketing and sales should be the core teams, but then eventually potentially customer success, account management, like functions as well. So this is something which is really related to the customer life cycle and buyer journey. So all the functions that are touching the customer potentially should be involved in this. That's the idea. So instead of like having siloed functions in which everybody does whatever they do based on their own processes, it should be one process which adjusts to the customer buying process. So when there is an, let's say, early stage process, then sales probably shouldn't do anything. It should be more of a marketing thing. But when there is a, let's say, later stage process, then it should be more of a sales thing where marketing supports and so forth. It's not really rocket science, but it is really data driven. So you need, first of all, this account-based approach, and then you will need data in order to understand like what to do, like what's the next best action for each of the companies that you are targeting.
Yeah, and I think it's but it is quite logical in the sense that a company can only spend its money once, and if each team is running out in different directions, then you don't get as much impact and effectiveness out of the money you spent on marketing, on sales, and CS, and product, etc. But if you do this shared approach of ABX, then everybody runs towards the same targets, and then obviously you utilize the money you have for go-to-market much more effectively.
Yeah, and I would bring here like another aspect, which is kind of looking at this process from the customer's perspective. So how customer experiences this process. So when you have different teams sending different messages, not really knowing like what the other teams have done previously, not really understanding like what they say. I mean, this is how it is in most of the companies. Then it's really confusing and chaotic for the customer, and probably they'd be better off going with the competitor who is doing it better. So it's really like this is like a customer centric, data driven approach. This is what ABX fundamentally is about.
Sounds so terrible when you say that they have no clue what's going on in the different teams, but I know that's the reality sometimes. Number 3, ABX is an outbound motion. Never confuse it with inbound or lead generation. Can you define this one?
Yeah. So if you look at the let's say I think one of the biggest problems in B2B marketing is that the digitalization started from the marketing automation. HubSpot was obviously like driving this change, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Many companies are still like thinking that that's B2B marketing. That's what B2B marketing is, and there is nothing else to it. And even if some companies are doing ABM at the same time, they might be doing one-to-one ABM, like the kind of these tactical things. And then when we talk about ABX, when we talk about account-based go-to-market, or even account-based marketing, it easily ends up in this requirement that okay, now let's do ABM and let's get more leads. But that's let's consider that that the data intent data that you get, that's similar to the inbound motion, form fills that you're getting inbound. That's not at all like what this is about, and what you should be targeting. So again, it's part of your overall ABX strategy. Inbound is definitely should be part of it. Lead generation should be part of it, but ABX is not equal to that, and that's not what should be the main metrics or main way to measure what is the impact of the ABX motion that you are having. So it's fundamentally an outbound motion, in a sense that you are proactively affecting this buying processes of the customers, instead of just kind of capturing the demand that is existing in the market.
Yeah, I guess it comes in that sense, it comes you also select the accounts that you want to target, and then you try to go for them in an outbound sense. But I think what you just said connects really well to your fourth bullet, which is kind of okay. How do we then measure these ROI metrics, and how do we understand whether we produce more pipeline and revenue through these tactics? So I'd love to hear kind of what are the typical things you see your customers looking at when they measure ABX success.
Yeah, this is good. So how to measure the return on investment here? So definitely it should not be leads, but the question is okay, so what do you measure then? So obviously some of the data that becomes available, there's a lot of data involved in ABX. So some of the data, intent data, can be utilized by the sales, and that can turn into an outbound motion. You might get opportunities, you might get leads, and so forth. So that's one way, of course, to measure it. But that shouldn't be the only way to measure it, because that's again that's just one small part of the overall ABX motion. So what you should be looking into is what is the actual impact that your investments are having. So you are touching the customer, which means that there is some kind of engagement from the customer, from the potential customer. And then the question is, how can you correlate this engagement into the opportunity data? So basically your pipeline. And then eventually, when you can do that, when you can say that, okay, now we have engagement that we are generating with an account, and after 2 weeks there's an opportunity, or after 1 month there's an opportunity. Okay, so we can connect these dots. We probably had an impact, even though it's not a straight line. It's not first there's a lead and then this lead is converted, but there is an engagement from this account related to a product, or content related to a product, which is then converting eventually into an opportunity. So that's the first step.
Maybe we should just catch these. You have 5 target metrics in the pipeline, or 4: awareness, engagement, conversion, and pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's kind of like a waterfall when you've selected your accounts, and then they run through this kind of awareness, engagement, conversion, and pipeline. Or
Yeah. This is actually it's not really like a funnel. It's more of a just to measure how do you measure the these different stages. The kind of the customer is going through these stages in their own buying journey. So always I recommend to look at it from the customer buyer journey perspective, and then just think what do you need to do in those stages? What do you need to achieve? So in the early stages of the journey, it's about awareness. Then it goes to engagement, they start to get interested in your content. Then it's conversion, which could happen by the sales, or it could happen through the form field. But normally it's in ABX, it's through the sales, supported by marketing. And then you have pipeline when you actually have an opportunity open, which then will move forward. And then it's really like, if you think about it from this perspective, like in each of these stages, you need different kind of content, and you have different kind of metrics, how you measure like that, awareness has been generated, engagement has been generated, conversion was achieved, and then like you convert the pipeline eventually into one opportunities.
Yeah, I've never tried this, but my marketing brain is already spinning. I would love to see, like, put in 100 accounts and then see how they kind of float through this. But that's a different conversation. Define account list level ICP for marketing and sales. Get buy-in from top management. I guess this is when like when you get close to starting out doing it for real.
Correct. So now we are getting to the point that, okay, if the first point is that this will take 4x your sales cycle, you really need strong commitment that internally that this is something we want to do, this is something we believe in, this is something we want to make work. So you need top management buy-in. That's for sure. Of course, depends on the size of the company what top management means, but typically it is like at least the marketing and sales decision makers. But many times it would go all the way to the CEO and maybe even to the board, that this is something that you really want to that we really want to achieve and do. And here, like about the account list level ICP. So this is ICP is kind of would be a topic for a session of its own. So ideal customer profile. But just very briefly, it means the definition of your ideal customers typically from a firmographic perspective, like industry, company size, countries, and revenue, and so forth.
Okay.
And there is some kind of a reason why this ICP has been selected. It's either based on the sales team's experience, or it's based on your actual opportunity data, or there can be different like ways to do it. But the important thing here is that in order to do ABX, you actually need to go all the way to the account list level. So you need to define those accounts. So it's not enough to have this definition of the ICP that it's this and that industry, this size, and this like countries, and maybe there are some technographics and which technologies they are using, and you can have different sorts of things depending on your product. But the thing is that you actually need to define the list of the accounts. You need to typically it should be in your CRM, and everybody, like the sales and the marketing and the top management, also should be aware that, okay, this is the list. These are the accounts we are now focusing in. And it could be, it's 5,000 accounts, 3,000 accounts, 1,000 accounts, so that everybody agrees that this is what we really want to focus in.
So it sounds like you actually have to know, in theory, all names of the accounts on that list. Where I know I've done lists where I've set this firmographic, but I haven't really thoroughly read through and checked the website of every account. But like you would argue, in theory, then you actually need to know why is this account on the list, right?
Correct. That's the idea, because otherwise this it becomes fuzzy. So everybody interprets the ICP in their own way, and is it an ICP or not becomes more of an opinion type thing rather than like solid account list, which the same account list is worked by each of all of the revenue teams, and it changes the picture completely, because then everybody works towards the same goal. So ICP itself, it's not enough. You also need to add the account list.
I think all of us can be guilty of skimming through that exercise sometimes. Okay.
Sure.
Use several intent data sources to determine the account level, buyer journey stage, and the best next action. So there's a lot of, if you're not in B2B marketing, there's a lot of lingo here. Maybe you can like just plainly explain what it means, Markus.
Yeah, sure. Sorry for that. So intent data basically means some kind of a signal of the behavior of the account, which then tells you something about the current stage of their buyer journey. So that's essentially what it is. And there are different types of intent data available. So you have so-called third-party intent data, which is coming from outside of your own context. In a sense, it's coming from third-party websites. G2, for instance, is a third-party intent data provider. N.Rich we have our own intent data called Intent Hub. There are a lot of different providers there, on the third party side, and then in the first party side, it would be, for instance, your website data, your advertising data, your sales data, your marketing automation data, your events data. So it's kind of all these interactions where the customers are interacting with your content, with your branded content, whereas the third party is more on the category level.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what in the data essentially is.
And I guess then why, or the answer to why, is because you want your, if it's the salespeople, you want the salespeople to focus on the accounts that are expressing a strong intent for being in market right now, whereas there's other accounts you would need to warm up further before it's worth spending time on these.
Yeah, you could simplify it like this. So in a sense, we go back to the awareness, engagement, conversion, pipeline stages. That this intent data should be a signal that, okay, this account is, let's say that they're, just simplified, they're not visiting your website, so they're not responding to your emails, they are not coming to your events, so probably they are quite cold. They are in a awareness stage or so. And like you said, then probably that's not the first account that the sales should be focusing in. But then when you move forward, there's an important point here, especially if you think about what the sales does and what the sales development does. So what we, for instance, do is that we're using Outreach as the sales engagement tool. And in terms of the sequences that we are using, if the customer is in the engaged stage, we will have a longer sequence, because we expect that in this case it will take a bit longer before they are ready to buy. So the sales is already there, and when it's in the conversion, that means that they are hot, and it means that they are really, it appears that they are now ready to talk to our sales. Then we have a shorter and more engaging, more of a call to action type thing. So I just want to emphasize here again that this is not a funnel where first there is marketing and then there is sales, but there is always both of them may have a role, and it's more about the content, what kind of content and how it's being distributed to each of the accounts.
Yeah, I bet you have this data somehow at N.Rich, but I would love to know how much it correlates with the real life. When you say that, okay, now this account is extremely hot, you should reach out. How often are they, and then actually in market state, or in a buying process? You don't have to say whether you have this information or not, but it would just be so cool to know.
Yeah, of course. I don't have the exact numbers here, but you can just think about it in a very logical way. So if you see that there is an intensive engagement from an account, they are visiting your pricing page several times, and they are coming to your events, and then eventually probably they are also talking to your sales. So probably these kinds of accounts, compared to accounts that don't have anything to do with you, they don't even know you, the conversion will be much higher. So obviously we can see this correlation very clearly.
Super nice. Okay, the last three, Markus. Ensure every team and channel are aware of the account buyer journey stage in order to use optimal content. You already touched it a little bit here, but maybe there's more to say.
Yeah, just briefly, it's really related to the previous point that the question is, how do you you have this account list of the ICP, so how do you kind of disseminate this information about the buyer journey stage within the organization, and how does the organization react to this information? So typically CRM should be the source of truth, that's actually the last point there. So I'll cover it here as well. So you should this data, and the single source of truth should be the CRM, where you have this information about the stage of the buyer journey. And every team should use that as a kind of a Bible. So you should be sure that like before you take an action, whether it's a sales action, whether it's a marketing action, whether it's a customer success or support action, that they are aware that, okay, this is what the data says, this is the stage of the company. So this is what we should do in terms of the content. So should I be really aggressive, like, just try to convert them if I'm a salesperson, or should I just be kind of nurturing them to kind of use maybe some case study and just show how we are different, or even like if they're in awareness stage and there's still some kind of interaction. So should I just kind of talk to them about like what this category we are in is and why it's needed and why it's useful. Otherwise, it will just like be very counter or like not really optimal, because you will use content which is not really resonating and not really helping the customer, and then you are in this chaotic situation where everybody is just doing the same thing for all the customer instead of personalizing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Prepare for sales development and content processes to take the most time to tackle. Are you referring to the actual creation of the content here?
Yeah. So first of all, the sales development is one of the main reasons why it takes so much time, especially if you don't have a sales development team like a BDR team or an SDR team in place. So that will take I'd say like safely a year to make that actually that kind of motion actually work. Obviously, there are different kinds of models, but like when you use sales development, it will take time to make it work. Here with ABX, the data is not often on the contact level, so it's on the account level, and this brings a lot of challenges for the salespeople, because they can only know that this account is hot, but you don't have the contact. So it's not the same thing as an inbound leader. So kind of you need to build completely new processes and completely new, maybe even like incentive structures and so forth. So that's the first part, and then the other part is the content processes. So this is really tricky. Like creating the content itself is like it's not really about the tricky thing is not about creating the content, but how do you create content that is actually working optimally in each of these stages. So that will take a lot of time. So many times customers start with like one size fits all type content, and then like you need to end up with the kind of a matrix. Especially if you have many different segments, you might have like you have the customer journey stage, you have the different kinds of segments, and you need content for all of those. So it could be that it will take a lot of time, and you will never be perfect at the first attempt. So it needs to be a process that goes on and on, and you continuously collect the data to understand like what is working and what is not, and improve it.
Yeah, and that probably also explains why like a great movement here takes time, because if you don't have any of this content, you need to find out what should the content be. You need to produce it, send it to an editor, send it to a designer, and so forth, and that just takes time. Is there anything more to say to number 10 now? You briefly mentioned it, Markus. CRM should be the single source of truth for all data.
So let just very briefly, this is our approach. This is what we recommend. So instead of integrating different tools like for instance sales enablement or sales engagement tool and the account-based tool or so, instead of creating this like this maze of integrations, ideal way in our opinion is that you have just one place which can be used as a single source of truth, which is the CRM, and the integration should go through that whenever it's possible. Of course, always it's not possible, and that's not the best way to do it. But with ABX, account-based data lives in the CRM. Even if you have an ABM platform, it still lives in the CRM, and that's where that should be the source of truth instead of the ABM platform or the the sales engagement tool or whatever you are using. So this is our recommendation. So that's very important, because then when you do that, then everybody knows that when I see something in the CRM, this is the truth, and you shouldn't have conflicting data in the different systems that are being used.
Yeah, that probably
which is also quite common, right?
If we are to at the end, I want you to explain what N.Rich is and who should be considering using it. But this ABX motion, can you share a few like motivating examples of what you've seen companies have achieved by setting out on this course? You don't necessarily have to name the specific company, but maybe some kind of motivating insights to this.
Yeah, sure. So it's a journey which takes time, but there are good examples. So I can just give example of an enterprise customer of ours who was basically majority of their sales comes from about they realized that majority of their sales comes from like a very small amount of accounts. This is a several billion-dollar revenue company. So there are like just this may be the Pareto rule: 20% of companies bring about 80% of revenue or so. But their marketing, digital marketing especially, was organized in a way that there's no difference between the accounts. Everybody is treated in exactly the same way, and the measurements were on like a general level. So the measurements were basically not taking into consideration is it an important account or not. So what happened with them when they started moving to this process was that they realized that actually none of, or almost none of, their marketing investments were actually making any sense. They were just kind of pouring money in the thin air, like just getting clicks, just getting visitors to their website, and just getting leads that never ended up with the sales because they were kind of disqualified or like too small companies. So yeah, that was I think collaborating with them like was a really interesting experience, because it's a huge company and it took a lot of time to make this happen. But when it did, then eventually it was quite clear like that there was like a kind of fundamental shift in the overall approach that the company has, kind of strategic approach that the company has to marketing in general. They are not yet in the ABX side, which I think in many cases for the enterprise companies it will take still many years before like they can get there. But yeah, that's I think a good example of
yeah, I think there's I think you're so right. For a lot of B2B companies, they, instead of like just spraying like or trying to boil the ocean with the little marketing budget they have, they will be much better off by actually deciding upon who is the accounts that we want to market to for real, and make sure that the budget actually goes into generating awareness amongst these accounts. So it's those people who show up on your website and not 20,000 other random people who has nothing to do on your website.
Exactly. In this case, we were talking about maybe like 300,000 or 500,000 visitors on the website, and eventually like finding out that like it was just a tiny fraction of them that were actually like relevant, or in a sense from this more strategic segments of theirs.
Cool. If there's any questions you want us to answer, then now is the time. But Markus, maybe just give us the quickest of pitches of what is N.Rich, and who do you normally see as your most happy and successful customers?
Yeah, sure. So N.Rich is an account-based marketing platform. So we help customers to implement the what we have been talking about here, the ABM or ABX motion, through like harnessing intent data. So we provide our own intent data, and then also what we like to call ourselves is like a system of action, where instead of just kind of passively waiting that somebody visits your website or like shows up in your event, you can actually do something about it and proactively generate this intent. So we have a very strong like account-based advertising component in our product. And in terms of like the customer like profile, so we focus really on the it's actually quite widely from the B2B perspective. When there is a need and interest in like kind of going to more account-based direction, it could be like an enterprise company in a manufacturing industry, or it could be like a tech company, which is like mostly our customers are like that. You can identify this, by if you have a sales development team, usually like that's probably like a good qualifier of being ready for this kind of a more advanced approach. But then on the other hand, it could be that's like it's just realizing the same thing as I mentioned with this customer, that they realize that small part of the customers are or like the potential target audience is generating a larger part of the sales, and then what to do about it, and that's what we help our customers achieve.
Should you think about a certain amount of list length as kind of the determining factors? I'm imagining if it's below 5,000, this tactic is probably good, but if it's above 20,000 accounts, then maybe it's other marketing tactics that you want to go with.
Yeah, correct. So then I don't really think that over 20,000 is an ICP. That's more of like a very general market. So typically like it should be quite narrow, but still, I mean, we are not. I want to emphasize that this is not N.Rich is not really ideal for if you want to just target one account or 10 accounts or something like that. So it would be there between, let's say, some hundreds or up to some thousands of accounts for which like it is an ideal platform.
Wonderful. All right, Markus, I think that's all the time we can take from you, but I want to just say super much thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and I hope everybody who listened learned a lot. If people want to talk with you or communicate with you, Markus, what is the best approach?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me, and I'll for sure answer if you are pinging me.
Thank you. Then have a great day, Markus, and everybody listening there out there. Thank you.